And again, thank you for coming to today's Let's Talk Wellness. We're joined here with Nick to talk about stress and food, really figuring out those eating triggers, effects on the body, and resources from PSEJ. So take it away, Nick.
Thank you, Jen. So like Jen said, I'm going to be talking today about stress and food. And since May is National Mental Health Awareness Month, I figured what better way than just talking about stress, which you're going to hear a lot of, and it is very, very important, but also in the combination of something that we do every day, which is eat. It's a universal language. None of us can go without food for extended periods of time. So of the things in life that are unavoidable, like we know are death, taxes, well, stress is one of them, and so is food. So out of those four, 50% of the equation, stress and food, it's a big subject that's talked about quite a lot. And this has been around for a pretty long time. Not everybody, I'm certain I misspoke. Many people have used stress eating as a way to cope with intense stress. Now, this can be short-term or long-term, but either way, studies show that it's linked to obesity in men and women. This does not differentiate between sexes. It affects absolutely everybody. On the side of stress, there was a study done by the American Psychological Association on Americans, and about a quarter of them were shown to have stress levels of 8 out of 10 on a 10-point scale. That is incredibly high. That is not something that any of us should be batting our eyes at or ignoring. That is very real. So again, there's this big connection, this big bridge between stress and appetite. That's not the same for everyone. There are different ways that you react to stress when it comes to food, but I decided to focus on the main part of it, which is the stress eating and overeating, things like that. And I found this quote, and many of you might have heard it already. It says, "Food is the most widely abused anti-anxiety drug in America, and exercise is the most potent but underutilized antidepressant." That's very, very real. We are a society and a country that typically relies on instant gratification, quick fixes. It's what we all want. It's very idealistic. 9 times out of 10, it doesn't work. In this case, that quick fix is maybe shoving some donuts in your mouth when you're stressed out, a burger. I'm not here to judge. I'm just here to tell you that, these things happen. There are a lot of implications that come along with it, not just for your physical health, your emotional health, and just your habits in general. So we're going to dive into that a little bit. So when you're stressed, what exactly happens? There's a thing in your brain called the hypothalamus, and that controls your fight or flight response. So you encounter stress, you either want to keep going or you want to run away from it and maybe isolate yourself from that stress. In the short term, so short-term stress, maybe you just stubbed your toe. Let's just pretend. You get this large release of epinephrine. Now, another name for that is adrenaline. And the way adrenaline works, as we all know, it kicks up your metabolism, it increases your heart rate, increases your blood pressure. It also decreases or ruins completely your appetite. Now, again, this is short term. So right then and there, yeah, stress doesn't sound too bad, right? I just get a big bolt of energy. Now my appetite is cut. Well, on the flip side of that, if that stress stays maintained and you get caught in this weird cycle of, and it happens to a lot of us when we get super upset, we get caught in that stress state. Well, your body doesn't really know that whatever the stress might be, which 9 times out of 10 is not life-threatening, your body does not know that. So it does what it does best, and it fights back. And one of the ways that it fights back is it releases an intense amount of cortisol. People here might know cortisol as the stress hormone. It does a lot of things. For the sake of this argument, it's going to increase your appetite. It's going to make your insulin much less sensitive. When your insulin is sensitive, that means when you eat food, the insulin goes to work very efficiently. That's when it is sensitive. When it's not sensitive, you need a ton more insulin to break down the food in your body, or the sugar more so, in your bloodstream and get rid of it. So again, that's an issue, because if you have cortisol in your bloodstream, a lot of it, of course, with very insensitive insulin, you're going to wind up gaining a lot of fat, and we're going to get into that. So this is actually what the stress response system really looks like. I'm not going to get into all the particulars. I don't want to confuse anybody here, but if you're ever curious, it's right there. You can see the adrenal glands right on top of the kidneys. Those are your kidneys. And again, that initial message gets sent from your hypothalamus, which is part of your central nervous system, goes down to your adrenal glands, and your adrenal glands release the adrenaline and the cortisol. And as you can see, there's a bunch of different effects. So decreased digestive activity, the liver will start to convert glycogen into glucose, which is pure blood sugar, essentially. And then, of course, high blood pressure, the increased blood rate, the dilation of bronchioles that you're seeing here. Bronchioles, from what I know, are small blood vessels, I believe, in your lungs. So you're allowed to take in more oxygen. Again, this is our body's response to things that's under attack. But when we're in the stress state, not only does stress make you gain fat, but it actually changes around your food preferences. It's really interesting. Now, everybody is different in this, but what I find to be very, very interesting is that typically, and we're going to get into in the next two slides, you actually will seek out comfort foods specifically, and it tends to come on very impulsively, very sudden and out of the blue. But what happens is you're eating this junk food, whether a lot or a little, does not matter, because this is the point we're going to get to. You mix that in with high insulin levels, because again, your insulin's not as sensitive. It's insensitive. So it's not sensitive enough. It's not doing what it's supposed to do. Mix that with cortisol, which already makes you hold on to fat and decreases your digestive activity. And you've got an equation that's perfect for fat gain. And the big issue with this is too, on the psychological side of things, and this is where stress really will start to become recumbent over and over and over again. Junk food does help quell stress. It does. It's very quick fix, and it doesn't get rid of the root of the stress, but it'll make you feel better for a little bit, right? Well, humans are creatures of habit. And since you've just now laid down a way to deal with stress by using food, the more you do it, the more that's going to become a habit, and it's going to become extremely hard to break. Like any substance, and I said this morning, like any substance, food is a substance, food's a chemical. I will parallel it to some sort of drug, but whether or not you're addicted, you're still laying down the roadmap in your brain to tell your brain over and over again, every time I'm stressed, I'm going to reach for a donut. I'm going to reach for a burger. I'm going to reach for whatever fatty, sugary, amazing tasting thing that I can, because it helps with my stress. So you're teaching yourself, without even knowing, terrible, terrible habits that can have obviously terrible effects on your health, not only physically, but mentally. And again, we are going to get into that. So what are some ways that we can identify if this is hunger from stress or if this is actual real hunger? And it's pretty easy. So I got this trip from Livongo. They have some great resources on there. This was exactly what I was looking for. I was looking probably for around half hour for something like this. And within 2 seconds, I found it right on Livongo. So if you want to read up more on this, I do suggest going to Livongo's website, livongo.com. There's a thing called Zendesk, very large database. Anyway, on the physical hunger side, this is where you get natural hunger, right? So it'll come on very gradually, very slowly. Probably it's going to be timed up with how you usually eat or when you usually eat throughout the day. You're not going to be, delineated to one type of food or one food group, which again, more times than not, is that comfort food. You also tend to, when it's natural hunger, you tend to stop yourself instead of keep on going. And again, that is, when you do that, it is a snowball effect. And one of the other things that people never talk about when it comes to stress eating is the guilt, the shame, and just, there's a lot of self-loathing that comes in that. I've dealt with that in the past with different clients when I did nutrition advising, and there is a lot of guilt and a lot of shame. And we're human. We're not supposed to be perfect. So don't feel guilt. You can learn from that experience and move forward. Because on the flip side of this, when the mental cravings hit, they're very, very easy to pick out. You just need to be honest with yourself and maybe take a step back and breathe in, because these urges and these cravings are going to hit you out of the blue. It's going to feel very, very sudden. You'll see there that it doesn't cause stomach rumbles. Those stomach rumbles are actually what's called peristalsis, which is the movement of muscle in your digestive tract to push food down into your colon, right? This kind of mental craving never gives you stomach rumbles. Why? Because your body doesn't actually need food. It's your brain just playing tricks on you. And again, you're more likely to think of a very specific food. I know when I'm stressed, I go for chocolate and like gummy bears. Don't know why. It's in my DNA, but I love them when I'm stressed. And it's a terrible habit to have. You're more likely to kind of spiral out of control and overeat. And then at the end of all of that, you're left feeling this sense of guilt, shame. There's a lot of it. I think that the guilt and the shame is one of the things that's never spoken about. It's very real, and it can most certainly have some very detrimental effects on your own self-image. So use this little chart to help guide you the next time you're hungry, whether or not you're stressed, help you figure it out. And there's some other ways that we can try to cope with the stress. Obviously, one of the best go-tos is meditation. This includes breathing exercises, sitting in silence, and just clearing your mind. You know, we do a lot of different demonstrations on the Be Well team. Exos does a ton of them. Jen's done them. I've done them. They're really great. Most of the breathing exercises you do, for instance, 4x4 breathing, box breathing, 4 seconds in and 4 seconds out. It's very easy. Very, very easy. You can do it anywhere you are. I do it in the car all the time. I even do it in meetings when I'm not speaking. So something to think about. The next thing that we can do to cope with the stress is exercise. We all know that it raises endorphins. It makes your body feel great. But on top of that, you're going to decrease your cortisol levels, which is amazing. We all want that because you feel so good. You're getting out that extra nervous energy. Maybe you have some angst. There's some stress. We live in Jersey, so I think angst kind of comes with the territory, right? Again, though, I think exercise, it is extremely, extremely unutilized. You all saw it in the quote in the beginning of this presentation. Severely, severely underutilized. Doesn't matter if you're going hard or if you're going soft, just as long as you're doing something and you're going at it. I know for me, and it's in the back of my chair, I have a weight vest that I walk in once or twice a day for a couple miles. And instead of hurting my knees, let's say with hard pounding cardio, I do that. So you start small and you build up, right? The last thing, I think a lot of people aren't aware of how well their social circle helps with stress. If there's one person you're thinking of right now when you're stressed, anybody, doesn't matter who it is, could be President Obama, just thinking about him makes you feel better. I know it makes me feel better. Is going to them and trying to root out that support when you are trying to work through stress without support, you tend to, I know for me, I tend to feel a little crazy because I'm like, oh, why am I stressed out this bad? He's not that stressed out. We're all different. It's good to have some perspective, and it's good to have somebody there call you out when maybe you're not thinking clearly. Extremely, extremely important. Now, on the flip side of things, when we're home and we're stressed out, when it comes to food, there are some steps that we can take. And one of the first ones you can do is just to try to create structures. That might mean planning out your meals. It might mean actually scheduling specific times to eat. It's just structure. It's just a schedule. That's all it is, but it will keep you there. It will keep you in line, and it will most certainly keep you from maybe impulsively going off if you're trying, at least. Next thing you can do is take away the temptation. Get rid of the cookies in your house. Get rid of the donuts in your house. I'm not telling you at all, because I don't suggest this. I don't like exclusion diets. I don't like anything where you exclude an entire food group out of your diet. That is no way to live unless you medically need it. And there are those cases. I'm not saying to get rid of every last piece of junk food in your house, but go and hide them in the back of the cabinet. 9 times out of 10, after the first few days of starting to eat healthy or whatever it might be, your body adjusts, you're not as hungry, and you learn to deal with it. The next thing that I've noticed while working from home, especially for me, is that my breaks initially, and I gained like 10 pounds from this, is every break I was doing was I would go to the kitchen and eat. And I would think, oh, it's only a little bit. Only a little bit. I'm active. Well, 10 pounds later, guess what? I needed to figure out a way to schedule breaks that didn't have anything to do with food. One of the best things that I learned, and it's actually underneath on this bracket, ironically and coincidentally, is going for a walk. I'll go and walk for like 2 hours, especially if I'm home and I have a lunch. So I'll use my lunch. I'll get back by the time 1 o'clock hits when my lunch ends. And if I have to hop in a meeting with anybody, I do it. But I make time and I find a way to fit it in, no matter if it's cold, wet, rainy, wet, whatever it might be. I always find some time. Also during those breaks, call someone, maybe, go to a library, do something that's going to fulfill you, that's going to satisfy you, because 9 times out of 10, having that distraction is the difference between maintaining your progress and furthering it, or digressing and not ruining your progress, but taking, a step or two back. It happens. The last thing you can do, and I don't mean to sound so frou-frou when I say this, is being kind to yourself. A lot of people love to compare themselves to others. That is the death of many, many people's progress in many things. They beat themselves up so quick because they're comparing themselves to, I don't know, Elon Musk. He figured it out at 40 or 45 years old. Well, why am I not a billionaire? Or how does this guy bodybuild and eat so much and he's in such good shape? How does he do it? Don't compare yourself. Everybody is different. And there's big, big reasons behind those things. So even the small wins, the small successes, pat yourself on the back. If you didn't do as well, make it a point to learn from that experience, because I can guarantee you that you will keep on repeating those mistakes unless you learn from that experience. And it doesn't mean you have to be perfect, but these are really great methods to stop stress eating while you're working at home, whatever your case might be. Even if you're in the office, these things do apply. Now, why should we care? The reason we should care is, and I'm not going to go into every last little detail here because I don't want to bore anybody. We should care because mental illness, mental health, emotional health is in a crisis right now, not only around the world, but especially among Americans. Again, I'm not going to go through every last statistic here, but if you keep in mind the population of the United States, those numbers are in the millions that you're looking at. That 9.7%, most likely in the millions. I believe it actually is in the millions, 30 million if we have 300 million people. I'm not sure on our actual population right now. It is a lot of people. This is not something to bat your eyes at. I see a lot of entitlement when it comes to this, like, oh, I would never be affected by that. Well, joke's on you, because during this entire time period, a lot of people are affected by this and they don't even know. Which brings me to my next point, is that a lot of them who do seek treatment, they have unmet needs or they can't find full treatment. So if you're wondering why you're so incredibly stressed and you feel like nobody else is, they are lying. Most everybody is stressed out most days. We're in America. It's very fast paced, especially up in the Northeast. These are real things. Don't bet your eyes at it. Really take into consideration where you're at, maybe where your friends and family are at, and take a look around. You'd be surprised at how many people really need that mediation for their stress. And again, on this slide, you'll see that 18% live with anxiety disorders. That's 18% of the United States population. That is an insanely large number. I'm going to digress off of this point. I just wanted to make the point that there is a big need for stress mediation, whether that's in the form of counseling or that's in the form of just practicing your own breathing exercises. But they do have tie-ins to food. And since food is the one thing besides water that we really can't live without, it can certainly affect you, and it doesn't discriminate amongst anybody. It affects us all. So the last thing I want to touch on, and then I'll get onto some of the PSG resources, that if anybody's looking for talks to be held during this month with their group, whether it's about stress eating, social, emotional health, whatever it might be, maybe a breathing demonstration, please reach out to us, because May is one of the busiest months that we have all year because of an intense focus on mental health. So please reach out. You can reach out to me, you can reach out to Jen, more than fine. These are just some resources and citations. As you can see, a lot of the resources are from trusted sources. Livongo, Zendesk, that's all FDA approved. It's really hard to argue with that kind of thing because of the FDA approval. Obviously, Livongo, and I've spoken about this so many times, they have coaches there who work on the behavioral therapist level. And from my own experience, I've had to do a lot of nutrition advising. And what winds up happening is that it's really not physical, the issue. Most of the times it is mental. So it could be stress, perceived barriers, whatever it might be. Because of Livongo's very human-centered approach, they work with you to work through those mental barriers. Now, I know a lot of people who find it difficult to either admit to themselves when they might be thinking just not as clearly and as soundly as they should. This is where coaching does come in. You have unlimited coaching with them. They will help you work through any obstacle, whether or not, if you don't want to talk about it, great. They're still going to try to help you. If you do, they can do an immense amount for you, on top of all of the very personalized health signals, but it's much more than that. It's an entire personalized program that we actually just set up about a month or two ago called an action plan. You put in your goals, your weight, your height, the time frame that you want, and it gives you step-by-step instructions on how to get there, right? Certain things to read, videos, blah, blah, blah. And then we all know about the Bluetooth scale. So if you wind up saying to yourself, well, you know what, I think working with an actual human on my healthy lifestyle approach is the way to go. You can go to healthy.livongo.com/PSEG. The registration code is PSEG. You will need your employee ID number. And then wherever you want the scale to be sent, they'll just ask you for your address. You don't actually talk to anybody. It's just on a form. So no worries about I won't even know that you joined. So it's very, very private, very confidential. Moving along, this is the rest of the Be Well team. I always like to list their names here in case you're not sure who to contact for which vendor. The vendors are on the top, and the main players, our team, are right at the bottom. Fearless leader Amanda Hugelmeyer, Kathleen Koslecki. Everybody knows Sam and Holly and Shannon and Dennis and Samantha. There's me, and then the wonderful Jennifer Totten is under the Virgin Pulse category. Feel free to reach out to any of us if you need help. Lastly, I'm going to talk about some PSEG resources and some awesome things that are going on, especially when it comes to stress and mental health. We're running this entire Bounce Forward program where every vendor on our team is giving presentations, even the ones who aren't on our team, let's say like a Beacon, who doesn't have an official Be Well rep, they'll be giving presentations. This entire thing is about resilience in all of its forms. Maybe you lost somebody during the pandemic. Maybe your friend lost somebody. Maybe you're just having trouble adapting back into society again, because if we're kind of going back out there, I know my anxiety is to the roof right now until I get used to being around all these people. Maybe you just need to reconnect with yourself or somebody else. It doesn't matter what it's about. It's resources all about improving your quality of life and helping you get through tough times. Right now, we're probably used to it. This is a tough time. So there's a ton of different presentations. Obviously, we started in April, and we work our way into June, where we end out June 3rd during the Unity concert. I'll actually be giving one on the 25th, which is next week, I believe. It might be the week after on that Monday. I just did double check my calendar. I have it in front of me. But a lot of great stuff. You'll be hearing me speak. On the 20th, they have an Ask the Doc, which is amazing. You get to talk to a doctor and ask all the questions that you want. Maybe you have health concerns. It's just a really, really good resource to have. And lastly, I brought up Beacon before. Beacon is an incredible resource. Not only do they have what we call Legal Light, which is legal advisement, but they won't actually go in the courtroom for you. You can get, the Legal Light, the legal and the financial services, you can get counseling sessions. And let's say you do get diagnosed, knock on wood, with some sort of an unfortunate, maybe just mental health episode. It happens to almost everybody, actually. For each diagnosis, you get 6 free counseling sessions. Now, a lot of times these conditions coincide with other conditions. It's just the way the human body and the mind is kind of set up. It's just, one brick comes down, maybe another brick comes down. It happens. For each and every diagnosis that you get 6 sessions. So if you're diagnosed with 3 things, that's 18 sessions that are absolutely free. They really help you work through a lot of work and life, hard periods of time, I think is the best way to put it without being too personal on anybody. I don't want to, upset anyone. And then there's plenty of online resources on top of that. So you can go to, the website that's listed right here, or if you prefer a phone, which we're on our computers all day, I don't blame you. Call the 800 number. It's 800-430-0747. And that is all I have for today. Just please remember to jump over to, to Virgin Pulse. Look at all the resources that everybody has, that you have. 9 times out of 10, a lot of these are free. If you're going through something, you don't need to sit there and suffer. Go and look at these resources. If you're unsure about what to use or how to use it, contact us. We will do it very privately, very confidentially, and we are there to help you. Now, you can contact